Welcome to Resource Sessions. I'm Gwendolyn Sterk of Sterk Family Law, and I'm honored and privileged to announce today who our September 2024 Not-for-Profit Hero of the Month is. And the organization is called Filling the Gap, and we're honored and privileged to have Jen Fitzgerald with us today. Hi, Jen. How are you?
Hi, I'm great. I'm honored to be here. Thanks for having me.
No problem. So you are affiliated with Filling the Gap, and the very first question I have is, can you tell us about what does it mean, Filling the Gap? What services do you provide?
Yeah, so Filling the Gap is a nonprofit that was started 6 years ago by my husband and I, and we are helping people that are deemed unrentable in traditional rental settings to find housing, and they go through our transformational housing program, and that is what we focus on with our residents.
Very good. So tell us a little bit, what does that transitional housing program look like?
Yeah, so over a series of events, how this all got started was my husband, on his way to work every day, friended a couple that was homeless on the streets. And long story short, he basically was finding different resources for them. It was the dead of winter, and they had to raise funds to get a hotel room every night. And one of the first things they asked for was a laptop to be able to apply for jobs and different things like that. And at that time, we were working with an organization that helped people that were fighting homelessness. So we had introduced them. And what we realized was they got a grant for 6 months full of rent to get off the streets and kind of get their feet on the ground. And so my husband's like, well, this is great. Nobody should be on the streets. If we have 6 months rent, we're good to go. And then he asked for the list of landlords. And they said, oh yeah, we don't have the list of landlords. You have to go find one that will rent to them. And that is when we realized that there's a gap in housing for people that are in need of housing, ready to try to rebuild their lives, but they have no credit. They may not have a good job history. They might be exiting a recovery program of some kind. So that gave birth to our nonprofit, and we work with a few different other nonprofits, and that our residents come from other different programs. For instance, one of our strong partners is Restoration Ministries out in Harvey. And so people that are exiting their recovery program usually have, their credits kind of been hit a little bit. They might have a job, but it's kind of a struggle for them to really be able to live on their own after such a hard time in their lives. So they go through an interview process with us after they've been recommended. And once they're in our program, they're case advocate, depending on if they're a man or woman. I usually work with all the women at this point. My husband, Mike, works with all the men, and they sit down and we write goals with them. And what we're really strong believers in is that their goals should be theirs, not goals that we give them. So as we all know, if a goal is a lot easier to reach if it actually belongs to you. So we work with them as they first move in to work on job goal, any career goals, financial goals, spiritual goals, personal goals. And then we, throughout our program, which is typically around 2 years, we work on getting them to reach those short-term and long-term goals, whatever that looks like. And what we've learned is that every resident has different needs. So even though they all kind of look the same when they get there, you really run into all kinds of things. We've had to work with people with some legal things. We've had to work with we have a single mom that had babies recently. So there's just different things that our residents are working through, and we're just there working alongside them.
I think you really brought up a great point, is that credit issue. We as Americans, first of all, and I think sometimes young people don't realize that your credit is an asset. It actually has value. And when you get into a crisis in life, and that crisis could hit any one of us, but for the grace of God, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when you get into that situation and your credit is the first thing to go, restoring that, you really hit on a hot topic, because nobody wants to rent to you because you don't have that credit score to get in. So how do you help people restore that credit rating?
Yeah, that's a great question. So that was one of the first things that we we go over with our residents is we usually just start with something simple as Credit Karma, and we get them to figure out what their credit score even is,
Sure.
and what is, if it's very low, what's going on with it. So like, how did it, what hit you that we can
Right.
get help. So what we teach them to do in our program is to pay off all of those old debts. So that is all. So that's how they can improve their credit. Sometimes when people were in their struggles, they didn't pay their ComEd bill for 5 months. Well, then in our program, because of our budgeting and financial work that we do with them, we show them, hey, let's attack these things one at a time. And that helps them to improve their credit, is just to get all of that stuff off of the list.
Right. And then that helps them with the housing. And then are you able then to apply and to assist the individuals to apply for the individual grants to get on their feet for a number of months?
Yeah, so in our program, what they do is everybody that we've housed so far has come in with a job, whether or not they stay with that same job. It's all just dependent, but they are going, what our program is set up to do is they give 30% of their income,
Right.
gross income, and they put it in a savings account. And that is what we use for their rent, so to speak. So we don't charge them money to live there, but we do show them that with your current income, typically housing should be about 30%
That's right.
of what your income is. So we're teaching them those skills, because a lot of times they've come in with they just don't have the knowledge of those budget tools. So it's something as simple as some of us take for granted, and that's the first step with that, is just teaching them, okay, this is how much we do for housing, this is how much we're using for utilities. We kind of follow the Dave Ramsey principles. I wouldn't say the whole program, but we do kind of teach them those things, which in turn helps improve their credit, but it also builds their savings. So at the end of 2 years, if they're doing everything right, they will have a good, great looking savings account that they
Right.
have been able to use for their next steps. So that next step for some is being able to rent, which they weren't able to do before.
Mhm.
And in a few cases, we've been able to lead our guys, if the two of our guys have bought condos with that savings.
Fantastic. Right.
So we're teaching them, hey, here's rent, but we have a wonderful realtor on our board of directors. So as soon as they hit year two, like they're there for a year, that's kind of where they get their feet like on some solid ground. And then year two, we say, all right, now it's time to start exploring those options, because it takes some time for people with the first time home buyers and those kinds of things. But it's worked. As long as they're staying the narrow road, they do real well in the program. They really do.
And how do you have the housing available?
So when we started this, my husband was very strong that we should be buying our properties in cash. So we do that all funded by private donors. We've had a few grants here and there, but not a ton of those yet. We're hoping to hit that a little bit harder this year. So basically, we have two properties right now. We have a two flat in Harvey, Illinois.
Okay.
And this is independent living. So nobody has a roommate unless they're a family, but we have two
Sure.
single people that live in our apartment building over there. And then we bought another single family home in South Holland last year at the end of the year. And that is where our single mom lives with her children. So
Okay.
that right now we only have the two properties. Our next goal is to continue it's always going to be our goal, I should say, to
To expand.
continue buying more and more, because the list of people that reach out to us on an everyday basis just grows and grows. So we need
Absolutely
to
right.
grow to help more people.
Understood. Now, so you've been in operation for about 6 years. What was the impetus, or outside of the event of your husband just helping that homeless couple or that homeless individual, what else gave you the idea or the vision to put the 2-year plan together?
So when we were doing that, we were doing a lot of mission work. So it was just so apparent that this is such a need around here. So
Right.
he looked at me one day, and we were collecting donations like over Facebook and different things like that. He goes, I think I'm just going to apply to be a 501(c)(3), then we can get, tax write-offs and different things for people.
Sure.
So if they're donating to us, we can do, have some legitimacy to it. So we had a friend that I talked to. She goes, all right, well, sometimes it takes a while, up to sometimes 9 months, 12 months to get approved. So you might as well put it through and see what happens. It came back approved in 6 weeks. So I guess
Fantastic. Wow.
yeah. So
Yeah.
obviously they agreed that it is something that needs to be done, or so.
Right.
So we just kind of, honestly, there was a group of 5 of us that sat around my dining room table. We still sit around the dining room table because we don't have an office. And that's where our board of directors meets. And that's where we talked through the vision that Mike was very strong and what he believed that we should be doing. But how the logistics of it were all just kind of born at my dining room table with a wonderful board of directors. And some people have shifted in it, but we get continually blessed with just people that want to come alongside in their areas of expertise to get us where we need to go. So
Sure.
that's
So
what
that
we did.
becomes my next question is if somebody's listening today and they say, hey, I think Filling the Gap is a program that I might want to get involved with, what's their first step?
Yeah, it's a great question. Well, we're currently looking to add a few board members. So if somebody really wants to plunge in and take that kind of commitment, they could reach out to me and I can give more information to that. But on a shorter way, like just to be a volunteer, just to help out here and there, we have cleanup days sometimes at our properties. Whenever a new resident comes in and out, it's not that I love when our residents leave, but it's such a fun time to have volunteers to come in and we clean up everything, we decorate, and it's just, and everybody's like, oh, I have this from this side, it's just really fun to have people come together and do that for our new residents. So when they come in, they feel welcomed and loved. So that's a huge piece to our mission. On an everyday basis, we also have just needs for our events that come up. We can always use event volunteers. We could use often our residents are in needs of things that can just help bless them. We have a hygiene drive that's coming up. We around the holidays do adopt a resident. So if somebody wants to come in and say, oh, for Christmas, I want to bless the Cypress House family, then there's ways to do that. We're also launching a new mentorship program. So anybody that loves the idea of just becoming a good friend to somebody that needed a second chance, that needs some of that'll be being launched in 2025. That in addition to being a case advocate for our residents, we want each resident to have a mentor to lean on, because often our residents do not have a lot of friends to lean on. So
Sure. That's what life evolved to. I understand that. So tell us a little bit about this event coming up or this drive. That sounds kind of fun.
yeah. So on October 10th, we're having a give back night from one of our steady sponsors. They've sponsored nearly every one of our bigger events. Bartolini's out in Midlothian
Sure.
is willing to do a give back night for us. So anybody that comes in on the evening of October 10th has to mention Filling the Gap, and we'll get a percentage of the proceeds of what is there. And included in that, because it's World Homeless Day that day, we decided to do a hygiene drive. So anything like shampoo, razors, socks, anything like that people that might be on the streets, or we're going to be giving them out at a food pantry, because hygiene items are usually the thing that often people run out of funds to do. So we're going to help out at the Restoration Ministries food pantry and give that out to the people of Harvey. So that give back night, if you bring in a hygiene item, you will be able to spin our prize wheel to get a free gift from us too, and get a chance to talk with us, see what we're doing, and meet us as well. So that's on October 10th.
Very well. Yeah.
Yeah. And in February, that's a ways off, but one of our biggest events of the year, as this one is going to be on February 28th. It's our trivia night. It usually has over 300 people there, and it is such a blast. We have music, we have trivia. It's at Gaelic Park. That information and sales, ticket sales will be up probably in December. So we always are looking for sponsors and people to come and just have a great night. And those events are a huge piece of our budget every year that help to get the new homes and support the residents.
Sure, absolutely. And it sounds like you support more than just the residents that are in your properties, but
Yeah.
also you're giving back in other ways.
Yeah, what's important to us is that we collaborate with other nonprofits, because we do better together, and we're filling a certain gap, right? But we want to help people that we know that might need things in other ways. So sometimes, even though our ministry might be small, our outreach can get bigger when we go and kind of join forces with like our partner, like Restoration Ministries, or
Sure.
another partner we have is Journey Hub out in Mokina. So if they're doing like a diaper drive or something, we say, hey, we're gonna gather some for you too. So
Right.
those
Very
kinds of
good.
things.
Now, the last thing I want to talk about today is the person who's listening and saying, you know what, life has really been ripped from underneath me, whatever that circumstance may be. Maybe they're out of their home because of domestic violence, a medical issue, an addiction, whatever, and they're listening and they're saying, this sounds like a great program. I don't even know where to start. And a lot of times my experience is that people feel so paralyzed that they don't know where to start. Can they call you? What should they do?
Yeah, that's a great question. A lot of people are out there in survival mode right now. So one of the main missions of our organization is to help them get out of that, right? So if you're in that mode right now, you can always feel free to reach out to me, Jen at fillingthegap-nfp.com. That's my email, or through our website, and get connected with me. We do only interview residents that are part of our partnerships with nonprofits, but that doesn't mean that they couldn't get connected with some of our nonprofit workers to have that work, and so I'd always say to contact me first, because maybe our program doesn't have a space right now, but there may be something else that I can connect them to, because we do work with so many different nonprofits around that they might have something that we can offer to them in a different way too, even if it's not housing, including that new mentorship program that'll be coming. So
Right.
that's another way that we want to go and help people, is that we may not have the housing space right now, but we could start working on credit with you right away, right? Or we could start to
Absolutely.
get your budget together, things like that. Or if you need someone to show you some rentals, I can, we have people on our board. I know quite a few great realtors would be willing to help in those ways too.
100%. Well, it's just very fascinating because it certainly is a need, something that's out there, and we appreciate your time to come on, share what you do, share how people can get involved. And I know you'll be attending our not-for-profit night for all of us to get together and see how we can interact. So we appreciate your time today, and we are very grateful for the services that you give to our community. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.